Hey everybody, my name is Scott Billings. I'm the East Campus High School pastor, and we have Jamin Murray in the studio with us.
What up?
Jamin, obviously, he's our YouTube editor. He is on media staff and doing youth group stuff here at the East Campus. Extraordinaire, overseer, amazing dude. And we're going to talk today about rest.
Yeah.
We're going to talk today about rest and what does that look like? Are we too busy?
Mm-hmm.
You're like, yes. Yeah. It's going to be important because
good.
This is coming from, number one, two people that have struggled with this for years and still struggle with this. Yeah. And it's really important because God doesn't want us to run ourselves into the ground. So, Jamin, I know that you graduated high school last year. Mm-hmm. Towards the end there, it was a little dicey.
Yeah.
And so why don't you tell us a little about your story of rest and what that looks like?
Yeah, so like Scott said, he knows the full story because we went through it together. And basically, towards the end of my high school, like halfway through the year, I started to pile on a lot of responsibilities and taking a lot of things on my plate. Some of the things that were on my plate is you have to think about, one, like my relationship with Christ. Like that's supposed to be theoretically your number one priority. At the time, I was in a relationship with a girl, which takes a lot of time too. I had my job, which I got paid for. I needed to, complete those responsibilities, which at the time I was also volunteering for junior high and youth too. So that was a lot. I was the yearbook editor for my school, which is really time. I didn't realize how much time that would take. And then on top of that, something I was forgetting was I was actually a student. I was trying to, keep my grades up and actually graduate. And on top of that, you have family, friends, social life. And I was also trying to do a personal YouTube channel. Not the greatest idea. But this resulted in it. Over time, it piled up and piled up and piled up. And there was the night where I broke.
Yeah, the melting point.
The melting point, that finally where you just snap. Obviously, at the time, I was addicted to caffeine because that was the only thing that was keeping me going. Wasn't sleeping, not good, don't do it. But finally, it was a night where I was working. It was around 1 a.m., and I was just doing a bunch of things. And then my sister came in, and she needed to borrow my laptop because it was the only one that you could connect to the printer. And I was just like, are you kidding me? I'm like, this is my hub. Like, this is where everything's going and flowing.
And his sister is very nice, by the way.
She was very nice about it.
Yeah.
And then finally I was like, fine. So I unplug everything and I'm getting mad. I'm like, take the laptop. And she's like struggling and moving slowly to get actually what she needed printed. I'm literally pacing in the kitchen. And I'm physically shaking and I'm just stressing out. And then finally just lash out. And I'm just like, I need you to give me that back. I have stuff to do. I need to get work done, etc. And that night I broke down, cried. And, parents are watching us like,
what is going on?
He needs help, So finally, that's the night that I broke.
I mean, what Jamin just described is something what a lot of people call burnout. Mm-hmm. And so when you're in that state, I mean, physically you're drained. Emotionally, you're drained. Spiritually, you're drained. And you feel like there's no hope and there's nothing that you can do about it. Mm-hmm. And that's really the definition of burnout. Like, obviously, you're not there now.
No.
Right.
No.
So what did you do? Like, how did you come out of that? What were some of the things that really helped you come out of that?
The first thing was, recognize your priorities. Recognize that you're not going to be able to do everything. So you find your priorities, and I think those, for me, it was just looking at, relationship with Christ, like that's number one. That needs to be put first before everything. Being a student, I needed to graduate. That would suck if I had to do another year of high school, just because of lack of, organization and whatever. So being a student, graduating, that was my other next priority, and then my job, because there's responsibilities I had to fulfill, but, really sitting down and looking at those things, looking at what that looks like, and then setting like boundaries and accountability to actually, stay with that.
Yeah. And so you could say that you focus on the things that you needed to do, not on the things that you wanted to do.
Exactly. The YouTube channel that was gone.
You're like, we're done.
It was really unfortunate. Yeah.
It was not the time. I mean, so what else helped you?
So I think going after you recognize your priorities, not doing things on your own. I think really, and by that, not doing things without God, because obviously I wasn't doing a lot of those things with God. I wasn't, asking for help or seeking him for some of those things. So that'd probably be the next thing.
I think too, when you try to do things without God, it's very frustrating. And it doesn't mean that hard things are not from God. Actually, God does give us a lot of hard things that makes us grow. But there's something different about doing something without God that is so futile and impossible. The Bible says in John 14 that when we are with Christ, that's the best place to be. But without God, we can do nothing.
Yeah.
And I think I personally forget that a lot of times,
Yeah.
that without God, I can't do anything. And I need to do things with God and not just do whatever I want to do. It doesn't mean that God gives you a bunch of boring things to do. He gives you the most amazing things to do. But it's really important to do it with God and not without him. That's really important. What's the last thing? What's the last thing that you got that really helped you?
Last thing was actually resting with God. Which,
what does that mean?
What a concept, right?
What does that mean, though, to rest with God? I mean, are we talking like taking a nap with God? Like what do you mean?
Some days that did mean taking a nap.
It's okay,
which is fine. But it's, actually not doing, what those extra things is when you actually do what you need to do. Do those, life responsibilities that are on priority. And then I think also picking a Sabbath. A lot of people at Sunday